Hope you're having a nice fall weekend and glad you're with us for ABC24 This Week. I'm Richard Ransom. We are here every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. to bring you the real story behind the big stories. And before I introduce my esteemed panel, let's get right to our topics for today. Boundary lines and pay bumps. The Shelby County Commission taking up both matters this week, quite possibly changing who represents you on the commission and delivering some nice pay raises. I'm talking more than 30% to both the sheriff and the county mayor. New president. The University of Memphis hires a new president to replace David Rudd. He has big shoes to fill, but his selection is raising questions about how hard the search committee really tried to find someone of color. One last jab. State lawmakers just couldn't let the mega site where the new Ford plant is being built to continue to be called the Memphis mega site. So it turns out they snuck in a name change, and we'll reflect on the pyramid turning 30 years old this week as well. But first, let me talk to you, our panel, introduce you to our panel. We have Otis Sanford, ABC24 political analyst, Mike Matthews, the retired ABC24 reporter, and Susan Adler Thorp, a political consultant here in Memphis and with Thorp Communications. So all three of you, thank you for being with me today. We appreciate it. I want to start by talking about the new boundary lines. Otis, I know you've been following on this. You opined on it on ABC24 This Week earlier. Let's show folks the map, if we can, of what the new districts look like. There's been, it basically reflects the census from 10 years ago, and it shows what we all know, that there's been a big population shift to the east. In fact, Cordova has its own district now, so to speak. Right. So let's just talk about the significance of this, because I think a lot of voters see a map like this and say, oh, who cares? But there is some important ramifications.
Well, there are, but one thing the county commission did specifically, they wanted to make sure that there were no issues overlapping Commissioners Michael Whaley, and Brandon Morrison, as I understand. So they, at the last minute, they sort of redrew the lines because they live fairly close to each other. And so they redrew those lines so they won't be competing against each other. The one person who was most affected is Mark Billingsley, who is not running for re-election anyway, so it was okay for them to sort of ease him out. I don't see that there's a major problem, certainly, for anyone who wants to seek re-election on this commission doing so. 7 of them have indicated that they want to run for re-election, and I don't think, even though there are some changes, there are some precinct changes that are moving into other districts, but I don't think it's going to adversely impact anyone currently on the county commission who wants to run for re-election.
Mike, there really wasn't a lot of rancor with this. Typically, you would expect that when we're talking about redistricting and politicians holding on to their territory and their turf, but this one seemed to go pretty smoothly overall.
Well, it's always interesting to me that politicians suddenly become like little mini kings and queens of their kingdom, getting upset that they might be voted out of that district because they say it's my district, and no, it's not. It's the people's district, okay? That's what it is. No one gave these guys lifetime permanent jobs. Thank heavens for that, by the way, considering some of the people we've had up on that board over the years. Bottom line is this, okay? You cut the pie to where the people are. The biggest slice goes to where the most people live. And whoever runs for office, runs for office. I've always wondered why they get so upset over this, and I think it just boils down to personal reasons. They get upset because they feel like somehow they're going to lose the next election. Well, you better show your stuff. You better bring your best stuff to the table in order to avoid loss.
And the county commission, Susan, seems to resist the gerrymandering temptations that we see at the congressional level, at least.
Well, it's kind of hard to do the gerrymandering on a local level that they can do on a federal level, because you would really hear a lot of screaming and hollering. But if you really want to watch people's eyes glaze over, mention the word redistricting. I mean, the truth is, for most people, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I would argue that if you would ask 90% of the people in this community who their county commissioners are, they couldn't tell you. And that's not that the county commission isn't important. It's just that is always the way it has been. I think the one commissioner who was probably most affected by the redistricting is probably Brandon Morrison. And she has represented a pretty heavy moderate Republican district for 4 years. She's done really a very good job. She's been quiet but effective. She's probably one of the the smartest county commissioners that we have. And her district has been shifted to pick up some of Mark Billingsley's precincts in Germantown. She's lost some of those moderate Republican precincts. And these, for Billingsley, are a little bit more on the conservative side. But I think when these people get to know her, and she is certainly an entrenched Republican, she won't have too much trouble finding her way towards reelection.
Well, so that people's eyes don't glaze over anymore, let's change topics and switch to something that I think people will maybe get a little bit fired up about, and that is the pay raises that are proposed for the Shelby County mayor and for the Shelby County sheriff. We have this graphic here showing you that the county mayor is looking at a 35% raise, which would take him to $210,000 a year from $156 roughly, and the county sheriff almost as big a raise. His salary would jump from $148 to right just short of $200,000 a year. Those are some pretty big increases. Otis, I'll go to you first again on this one. Mm-hmm. People maybe have some trouble with that when they were looking at maybe 1%, perhaps a 5% raise, but probably not any more than that.
No question about it. And people always get a little chafed when they see this level of pay raises for people who are elected to public office, when they look at their own paychecks and they see what they're getting or not getting. And in some cases, they don't even have jobs. So I don't know why this was done, other than the fact that Edmund Ford Jr. is the one that's pushing this, and he probably has no reluctance to do this. I am sort of surprised that he would be pushing for a pay raise for the mayor, and the current mayor is a person that he does not like at all and has been sparring with him for years. But I think the voters are going to say, we don't want this. They're going to let the county commission know about it. I don't think you're going to see Floyd Bonner or Lee Harris talking much about it. And they may even say, hey, look, I'm not interested in this. I'm focused on what I'm trying to do here in these jobs. I'm not asking for a raise, certainly not a raise of this level.
Mike, when they undertake issues such as this or measures such as this, you always wonder what the thinking is when they would make it such a big jump, knowing what the average constituent is dealing with. It just defies explanation, even though I'm not saying, that these two men don't deserve to make right around $200,000 a year. No one, people who judge that, I'd like to have them sit in their shoes for a day or two. The jobs are not easy. But on the other hand, something like that is so glaring and seems so disproportionate to what the average voter can reasonably expect.
Well, let's talk to the average voters for a second, folks. Raise your hands. How many of you have got a 35% raise in the last year? Just raise your hand. 35%.
I can hear them raise. I can feel them being raised.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. I mean, there's no saying that perhaps they deserve more. They don't deserve more money. Maybe they do, especially along lines of the sheriff's department. I don't think the county mayor does, because the county mayor's policies and things are limited, and he doesn't really do a heck of a lot in that job. No one ever has done a heck of a lot in that job. But the bottom line is this: people forget the fact. Former County Commissioner Terry Rowland told me this once, and I think he's absolutely right. You don't get elected to the job because of the money you're going to make on the job. You get elected to the job to do the job. Public service is just that. It's public service. You service the public. You take a pay cut from your regular job. People who are on the cabinet of all presidents normally take big pay cuts from where they were eventually, previously in business or other areas. You do it because you want to serve people. So in this case, I don't think the public wants them to serve themselves. They want to have those folks serve them. And that's why I don't think this has a chance.
Susan, I'll let you have the final word on this.
I'm going to be quick. I'll be the contrarian. In a perfect world, yeah, they all run for office to serve the people, but that's not exactly really why people serve in public office. But, I have no trouble giving pay raises to public officials when they prove that they're worthy and do a good job. I think Lee Harris has done a reasonably good job. I think Bonner has done a great job as sheriff. I think the 30% plus is a big leap. But you have to remember, these people manage thousands of employees, and they manage billion-dollar budgets. And, paying them $200,000 a year, it is a lot for the common man. I understand that. It comes out of the public purse. But, if you...
Well, we may have lost Susan temporarily. Hopefully we can get her back here. But what's interesting to me, you two, is there are local governments now who are just passing an ordinance that basically says that the salary increases every year take place. They're in accordance with the cost of living, whatever inflation is doing, and then it's just done. It doesn't have to be a big issue every time somebody wants to talk about a pay raise, and that way it doesn't become quite the political hot potato that it can when you're proposing a 35-36% pay raise. So we'll leave it there. We're going to try and get Susan live again, and we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
I get a call from my wife saying my son's been in an accident. There was a lot of unanswered questions, and I needed somebody to get to the bottom of it. I don't know what we would have done if it hadn't been for Morgan & Morgan. You're going up against insurance companies with multiple attorneys and lots of money. It takes a firm like Morgan & Morgan to reach a favorable outcome. We got a large enough settlement that it'll provide for Dakota for the rest of his life.
Thank you, Morgan & Morgan.
Beat the stress with the Planet Fitness Black Card and get all the perks for zero enrollment, $22.99 a month, now to November 16th, like access to over 2,000 locations. Bring a guest anytime. Relax with massage chairs and more. Plus, get tons of variety and space in our super clean clubs. Your fitness is essential. Get all the perks with the PF Black Card for zero enrollment and $22.99 a month. Hurry, deal ends November 16th.
Now through November 16th, join for zero enrollment at any of our 9 Memphis area locations.
Now, when it matters most, the straightforward facts. ABC News is America's #1 news. Good Morning America, #1 in the morning, 9 years running. World News Tonight with David Muir, #1 in the evening with America's most watched newscast. 2020, the #1 news magazine on Friday nights. The View, the #1 daytime talk show. And ABC News Live, #1 in streaming news. ABC News is America's #1 news.
Welcome back to ABC 24 This Week. Otis Sanford's joining me, as is Susan Thorp and also Mike Matthews. So we've got a couple more topics we want to talk about here. And the first of one being the U of M hiring a new president. This is always a big deal in a city like this where the campus is so important in so many ways. And as you probably know by now, the choice was senior provost for Auburn University and senior vice president as well, Dr. Bill Hardgrave. And he was one of 3 finalists picked, and the Board of Trustees landed on him as their finalist. But we also know that there's been some controversy about this because none of the 3 finalists was a person of color. And in a campus that has a significant minority representation, as does the University of Memphis, that has raised some eyebrows. The NAACP, the Black Caucus of the County Commission, also voicing some concern about this. Mike, I'll start with you on this. Do they have a legitimate gripe here? It does seem like there could have been more transparency and maybe more of an effort to be more diverse in this election.
I hate putting a person's face on the mat of those who are looking for a job just because they're African American or Asian or whatever. But that said, there are plenty of African Americans out there who are smart enough, intelligent enough, who have a bold vision to lead a university into the future. Okay? Plenty of them out there. And I can't even fathom the thought that none of them decided to apply for this job. This is a pretty good job out here. I don't know what happened, but I think they messed up, and I think they messed up big time with the final 3. This guy who got it might be the greatest university president of all time. That's the sad thing, right? He might be painted with a brush here, but still, yeah, they messed up. I think they messed up a lot in this choice.
Susan, the board, 2 African Americans on the Board of Trustees say that they had conversations with him about minority representation, diversity, inclusion, and they came away from that with his assurances that he is going to make that a priority. Do you think that's enough in this case?
Well, I think in the public perception, it's probably not enough. But I'm curious to know how many applications they actually got. And were there, we don't know that for sure, were there applicants of color? Among the 3 finalists, though,
he seems to have been the safe choice. He comes from a university with a good reputation. It's a Southern university. It's got a good football team. But I really think that the ultimate challenge for this new president is going to be to see how he handles diversity in a school such as the University of Memphis, which has, I believe, about 22,000 students, maybe a little bit more, and it's 32% African American versus Auburn, which I believe is about 31,000 students and 5% African American. So he has a real challenge ahead of him. Whether it was the right choice or not, we're not going to know. Not for the time being.
Well, Otis, before I get to you, let's hear from Mr. Hargrave and one of the comments he made when he addressed the cameras shortly after he was selected.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be here, and I'm humbled. There's no way that a kid from a small town just a few hours down the road should be standing here in front of you, but I am. And it certainly is a testament to the power of higher education.
All right, he went on to say that because of his humble beginnings, the fact that he's now a university president shows, as he said, the power of higher education. Otis, full disclosure, you are a faculty member of the University of Memphis. We realize you're talking about your future boss here, but what are you hearing on the faculty, and what are your thoughts about how this was handled?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will talk about what I'm hearing on the campus. I'm going to be more of a reporter on this one than an analyst here. And what I'm hearing on the campus is some concern here, Richard. Not necessarily about him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I have not met him yet. I certainly wasn't involved in any of the process here of the selection. But I am hearing on the campus some concern from faculty members, from staffers, about how the process was carried out. There were African Americans who did apply to this, to Mike's point. And so there are some questions that needed to be answered, if not by the search committee, certainly the full board, and even the firm that they hired. So we'll just have to wait to see if we get those answers. The issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion are big issues on the campus. I am personally involved in a lot of those things. So it will be interesting to see how Dr. Hargrave manages that going forward. We'll just have to wait and see. Susan made the point about the racial diversity at Auburn as opposed to the University of Memphis. Yeah, Auburn had 5%. I was told as late as Thursday that this year is down to like 2 or 3% just because of some attrition and people not coming back during the pandemic. So we're talking about 32% African American population here at the UofM versus about 2%. Or 3% at Auburn. The public wants to know how he's going to address that.
All right, and Susan, put on your political consultant hat here. He's not a politician per se, but there are politics involved here. What would you recommend he do shortly after officially taking office to maybe ease things over?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is reach out to people in the community, in the civic community, business community, and government. Primarily people of leadership in the African American community. I'd go out and I would also, at the same time, meet with his faculty. I would try and reassure the faculty, listen to their concerns, reassure that he has heard them. And one really important thing that I think that he could do, University of Memphis has some really outstanding professors. He could emphasize the role that our university can play in this community, and he could really showcase these professors if he offers them to help the community solve some of our community problems. I think that showing that he cares about this community, cares about his faculty, will be a major step for him in getting acquainted here and becoming a leader that we hope he will be.
And Otis, I think that's really all that people ask for is, look at David Rudd. Talk about big shoes to fill, obviously a white male, but always made diversity and inclusion a priority, talked about it all the time, and put his money where his mouth is in a large extent in carrying out those policies.
Well, no question about it. And again, I do have a built-in bias here because I work very closely with Dr. Rudd, and everything that you just said is absolutely true. He gets things done, and he cares about this community in ways that it's just uncanny how much he cares about this community and how much he cares about the issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, he started a whole project around that in 2020. That's still going forward now. We just had the renaming of the UC for Maxine Smith. We finally got the Larry Finch Plaza done as a sort of a reckoning to race in this community. So I'm saying that Dr. Hargrave has some big shoes to fill, and we'll just have to wait and see how he manages it.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the pyramid celebrating its 30th birthday. Who would have thought it would have survived this long? We'll be right back.
That stadium, the fans, it's everything I want. So why am I down it all of a sudden?
Not everybody. It's the golden opportunity we're giving you. Thought you'd be grateful.
This is the single biggest decision you've ever made. Trust your instincts.
This is GMA3, what you need to know. GMA3.
A third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon.
It's all about you. Lunchtime on ABC.
Oh, yeah, dude, that doesn't look good.
I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, I can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
Don't miss a day of DBL. Bold debates. It was the truth.
Doesn't matter.
Hot celebs.
Happy 5th anniversary.
That just sounded weird, actually. And all the laughs.
Weekdays at 11:30 on ABC24 Memphis.
Well, we're battling the clock as we always do on the show, but in the time we have left, the two things I want to talk about. First, Otis, you and I were talking about this earlier. We learned late this week, that state lawmakers managed to squeeze in a name change of the Memphis megasite where the Ford plant is going up, and now it's going to be called the West Tennessee megasite. Granted, it was never in Memphis, the megasite where this big development is about to take place, but this was such a priority for state lawmakers to, once again, I guess, give Memphis the middle finger if they could.
No question about it, Richard. You know, Memphis in the name was fine until they actually got what they really wanted and what the community needed, which was actually a tenant. And so once they got that, they said, we don't need Memphis in the name anymore. If it was good enough to be part of the megasite back when they were trying to get business, it should be good enough now. But it's a minor deal. I don't care much about that. Let it be West Tennessee megasite. It's fine with me.
Interestingly enough, the Department of Economic Development and Google Maps still refers to it as Memphis megasite because that's what it's known for.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
let's talk about something a little more fun now, and that's the 30th birthday of the Memphis Pyramid, which has been through an awful lot in those 30 years, including sitting dormant for 10 years. But now we all know it as the mega Bass Pro Shops, the biggest Bass Pro Shops in the world, and it's right here in our hometown. Mike, you go first because you've covered this story your entire career here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I take my hat off to this city. Memphis is a city that doesn't tear its old buildings down. They leave them, sometimes vacant for years, like the Steric building, but they leave them and they try to reuse them, as opposed to cities like Nashville or Charlotte, North Carolina, which will tear everything down from the past to put up new in the future. I think this gives Memphis its charm. Getting the Bass Pro Shops into that building was the remarkable work of Willie Harrington, Robert Lipscomb, who did an amazing job on that, and A.C. Wharton. And it's an amazing fact that this 30 years later, this building is still operating, still doing well.
Yeah, more successful, you could argue, than it ever has been. Susan?
Well, I have to say, Mike, that the city of Memphis and the county did not own the Starrick building, but we did own the pyramid, and we had to figure out a way to help pay that debt. And the best way to do it was bring in a company that sells fishing tackle and a lot of other things for sportsmen. And I think, you know, in hindsight, it was a great idea. But if I look back on the 30 years of the pyramid and when Sidney Schlinker came to town and sold us on the pyramid, there's one thing I'll never forget. We coined in this community a new verb, and it's called, if you get schlinkered, that means you've been had. And so whenever people in this community use the word schlinkered, you got to associate it with the pyramid and taking you for a ride.
So true. Otis, I'll let you finish up.
Well, and everything that they said is right, and Susan is definitely right that slinker became a verb after what he did when he came to town and sort of sold us on a bill of goods. There's a lot of history still, even though it was only an arena for a short period of time. There's a lot of history that was made there. Especially with entertainment. You mentioned earlier the Judge being the first one, but there were some great concerts there, some exciting basketball games there, and then the Grizzlies used it for the first 3 years. And who can ever forget the big heavyweight fight between Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson? So there's some memories to be had there, and Mike is right. Hats off to the elected officials for getting it a Bass Pro Shop.
Indeed. My favorite memory, my wife getting her degree from the University of Memphis at a graduation ceremony at the pyramid. All right, we're going to take a break, folks. We'll be right back.
Call 526-2126. Only Wendy's serves a better breakfast with a better biscuit. A hot, buttery treasure loaded with a fresh cracked egg, cheese, and sausage or bacon. And to top it off right now, they're just $1. $1? Now there's no reason to go somewhere else. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Need cash? TitleMax offers 2 ways to get it. Get cash using your car title. Go to TitleMax.com, enter the car year, make, model. See how much you can get. TitleMax also offers an unsecured loan. No title required. Check out TitleMax.com when you need more cash. Check out TitleMax.com and shop us for rates. Get up to $2,500 without a car title, or up to $6,500 using your car title. And you'll say, I got my title back with TitleMax.
Get your title back with TitleMax.
If you're injured, hire a lawyer who will fight for every penny you deserve. Last year, we recovered $1 billion for our clients. There's only one Morgan & Morgan.
When you wake up and let's do this. Darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side.
Start your day off right. Wake up with ABC24 News right now and
Good morning, America.
Are you ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
Saving people, it's kind of our job.
I'm in. Me too.
We all are.
To weigh in on today's show, the email address is rransom@abc24.com. That's rransom@abc24.com. Really hope you'll join us next week, folks, because it's one of my favorite shows of the year. And the assembled panel you see here will also be joining me next week as well, when we will hear their nominees for Turkey of the Year and also what they are most thankful for. So all three of you need to give that some thought here over the next several days, and we'll have that for you next Sunday right here on ABC24 This Week. My thanks to my panel, my thanks to you at home for being here, and we'll see you next week for ABC24 This Week.